Hello and welcome to this webinar. It will be my pleasure today to present you database proxies, what they are, what they are used for, and what good proxies can do for you. My name is Gilles Rayrat. I am VP of Engineering here at Continuent and the main developer of Tungsten Connector, which is Continuent's database proxy. Let's get started with a very simple example where we have an application, your application, that needs access to a database. In this setup, the reads and the writes are going to the same node. We don't need any intermediate layer. However, if the database fails, the application breaks. This is one of the reasons why clustered databases have been introduced. In a clustered database, the information is replicated from the main node, the master, to other instances, slaves. The application accesses the master instance and will even be able to access the slave replicas in order to read from them and unload the master from the read traffic. Of course, this requires some kind of intelligence at the application layer because it will need to know what kind of traffic it will send to the databases. In the event of a failure of the main database of the master, the application will need to be reconfigured because the link to the main database will be broken. So database administrators will need to reconfigure applications and will need to point to the new master. In the case of smart applications, the same individual will need to reconfigure both the read access and the write accesses. Imagine this same example with a lot of applications. There will be a lot of work to reconfigure everything. Even worse, if one application was reconfigured correctly, pointing to the new master, but something went wrong with the reconfiguration of another application, and data is written to both the slave and the master at the same time. The information in the database will diverge. The replication will just break, and the data will be spread around database instances, making it a nightmare to reconcile. This is where proxies come at play. With proxies, we keep the link and the application will just need to point to the proxy instead of the master. The proxy is a layer, a thin layer, a thin piece of software that will sit between the application and the cluster. A good proxy, its job is to make the database, the cluster, appear like a single database to the application. The complexity of the cluster is totally hidden. All you will need to do is connect your application to the proxy. In the event of failure of our master node, it's actually the proxy's job to reconfigure the link. The application will keep its connection to the proxy, and the new master connection will be automatically reconfigured by the proxy. In the case of Tungsten Proxy, you can see that the application to proxy link remains open, and the proxy will transparently reroute traffic to the new node without the application even noticing that a failure has happened. All it will see is a little lag in database access. The smart applications that we saw just earlier will also be able to access smart proxies with two links, one for read-writes and one for reads, so that the master will be unloaded from read traffic. So the smart application knows what kind of SQL traffic it can send to the proxy and will ask for a read-only link. With smarter proxies, we can actually do the same for simple applications. The simple application will connect to our smart proxy here, and the proxy will do the job of analyzing the traffic and sending the read links, the read operations to the slave instances. With advanced database setups, like here a disaster recovery setup, we have two sites. One site is the master site on zone 1, and there is a full cluster here that will replicate its information to a second site, the relay cluster. On both sites, applications will be running and will access the databases. Of course, the applications that are sitting on zone 2, we need to write information to the main cluster in zone 1. However, the applications that are set up on zone 2 will be able, thanks to the proxy, to read information from the local slave instances. I have to mention that only Tungsten is able to do that because it's a full cluster solution and it's able to deploy and set up the full stack with this kind of feature. Another very interesting setup that Tungsten can provide you is a multi-master environment, where instead of having a master and a slave clusters, you will have actually two clusters, two masters. With the same logic, the applications that are sitting on each zone will be able to access their cluster that are running on the same zone, saving the cost of a cross-zone hop and connectivity lag. The write operations go to the local cluster, and the read operations also go to the slaves that are sitting in the same zone as the application. Let me now reveal you how this magic is done. Tungsten Cluster is a full clustering suite. The proxy, we saw it, is one piece of this suite, which is composed also of a replicator, obviously in charge of copying the information from the master to the slaves, and the manager, which is in charge of monitoring the network, the hosts, and the replication within this cluster. At all times, the managers and the proxies are connected together so that the proxies know in real time what the state of the cluster is. The connectors will be informed immediately in case of failover or if a slave is being put down for maintenance. One interesting feature of the connector is bridge mode. The idea behind bridge mode is to provide a direct access to the master to the application. Actually, instead of having application to proxy and then proxy to master connection, we in the proxy provide direct socket network level access to the master. We actually can also do that to a slave if the application tells us to, or through a different port to access the proxy. This functionality makes the proxy totally transparent since it's a direct connection. Of course, there is no read-write splitting that is possible because we do not analyze the traffic that is going between the application and the node. In case of failure, the link will break since it's a direct link. However, this allows ultra-fast operations. A second feature that we provide that is pretty popular is Smart Scale. The problem that Smart Scale solves is the issue that you have with all main clustering solutions. When a record is written to the main database, to the master, there is a little lag, a little delay before the information hits the slaves. The issue here is that an application that writes information to the database most probably will expect this information to be in the database for the next operation. If you have some read-write splitting that is in place, there can be cases where the information is not in the slave database. So from the application's point of view, it will write data and not have it in the database. That can trigger very odd cases with some applications. So that's where Smart Scale comes. And since Tungsten is a full clustering suite, it will have access to the state of replication. When the application writes data to the master, the Tungsten proxy will be able to know whether this data has hit the slave or not. If the data has been replicated, it's okay to read from the slave. If not, the Tungsten proxy will automatically return the data that is sitting on the master, since it's not available on the slaves. Okay, it will be enough for today. I just would like to recap quickly. So a proxy is a single piece of software that sits between your application and your cluster, and that will make the complex topology of a cluster appear like a simple database instance to your application. Applications will be able to read from slave replicas in order to unload the master from the read traffic. If you would like more information about our solutions, please get in touch with us. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.